So we've spoken about planning for retirement and we've covered income in retirement. We're now going to move beyond the numbers to the emotional transition and explore how to live well in retirement. When people think about it, they often focus on the numbers. Have I saved enough? Can I afford it? But what many people are surprised by is that retirement isn't just a financial change. It's an emotional one too. For years, work gives us structure, routine, social connection, and a sense of identity. So when that chapter ends, it's completely normal to feel a mix of excitement and uncertainty, even a sense of loss, alongside the relief of finishing work. If you've ever thought, I should be feeling happier about this, or why does this feel harder than I expected, you're not alone. Nothing is wrong with you. This is a very common part of the transition. Today is about acknowledging that reality. Retirement isn't about stepping away from purpose. It's about redefining it on your own terms and with the right support. I'm joined by Mia Northrop from our Strategy and Insights team. She is a seasoned insights and research leader with over 20 years of experience in market, voice of customer, and design research. Mia blends survey, interview, and focus group methodology and joins the dots between the different data sources to uncover deep insights that help Australian Super steer members into their best financial position for retirement. Mia is also co-author of Life Admin Hacks, where she shares her expertise to help people streamline the way they manage life admin, the homework of adult life. Welcome, Mia. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Peter.
Now, Mia, in your role, what do you do to help our members?
I have the privilege of talking to members about their experience with us, how they're thinking about their personal finances and super, and helping drive product innovation and customer experiences here at the fund.
A lot of people see retirement as this permanent holiday. What may be a healthier way to look at retirement?
So the key thing to think about retirement is that it's a stage, it's not an event. And if you recognise that it's a stage that could last 10 or 20 or 30 years, hopefully longer, you can't be on holiday all that time. It gets pretty expensive and pretty unfulfilling. So a healthier way to think about it is as a transition, as a period. Another life event milestone that we can think about that's similar is getting married. So some people focus on the wedding, the event, the big day. We know that it probably pays to focus on the marriage itself and the fact that life as newlyweds is very different to 10, 20, 30 years if you have a happy, successful marriage. It takes effort for a marriage to flourish. It matures, it changes over time. And retirement is similar. You have the event of that, the glorious day of the last day at work where you might have resigned or you're stepping away from your business. But then you have 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you in your retirement. So you can reflect on what does retirement look like in your 60s or 70s or 80s? How might your needs change? How does your lifestyle change? What kinds of preferences or interests are you going to have at those different stages? And get intentional about those phases. So you can think about those different phases. Who will you live with? Where will you live? What will your day look like? What will your social life look like? And be intentional about it. So yeah, a healthier way to think about it is it's a period, it has phases, and to be intentional about each of those phases.
So how important is it for a mindset to shape that retirement you're looking for?
Yeah, well, like most things in life, mindset is everything. And there are two mindsets that are particularly useful for retirement, and our audience probably has heard of both of them. The first one is a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And a growth mindset says that you believe that as a person, you can learn, you can improve your capabilities through commitment and hard work. A fixed mindset suggests that you're born with certain traits and smarts, and that's it. So, you can imagine that there's lots to learn about going into retirement. We've talked about so many things today. A growth mindset where you are into lifelong learning and you're curious about things sets you up for success because there's lots to learn about retirement. There's the new financial products. There's getting your head around account-based pensions, the government age pension, the aged care landscape, and thinking about your life in a new way. So that growth mindset really comes in handy. The second mindset is an abundance mindset as opposed to a scarcity mindset. An abundance mindset is a set of beliefs where you recognize the opportunities and the resources that you have available to you, as opposed to a scarcity mindset, which might keep you in that fear of running out, hoarding savings mode, where you feel like there's never enough time, there's never enough money, there's never enough opportunities. So an abundance mindset isn't sort of thinking, I'm going to spontaneously manifest money. It's still important to recognize the financial realities of where you are, but it recognizes that you have choices, you have options, you have resources that you can tap into, whether it's financial resources, cognitive, emotional, social, and that there's lots of opportunities and contributions you can still make. So those two mindsets together help you see yourself in a new identity as you move into retirement and tap into the opportunities and choices that you have before you in a positive way.
What advice would you give to a member who's feeling anxious or uncertain about what retirement might look like for them?
Yeah, so everyone's anxious about some aspect of retirement, whether it's, will I have enough money? What am I going to do all day? Is my partner going to drive me up the wall if we're home together all the time? How will I feel when I don't have a job title or a role in a business? So that's, as you mentioned before, very common, though sometimes unexpected feelings. The antidote to this kind of anxiety is action. So everybody in the audience should congratulate themselves for tuning into the webinar, because they're taking action to get certainty about what retirement might look like for them. And we encourage people to keep doing that. Listen to podcasts, read books, get your questions answered. Anything you can do to reduce that level of unclarity is going to be useful. And there are two insights from our retirement confidence research that are reassuring here. The first is that when we talk to members who are in their 50s, in that sort of planning stage, we ask them, how confident do you feel that you will live well in retirement? And about 52% feel like they're going to be confident. It's a little less for women. And then we ask them again once they've actually retired. So they've gone through the transition, they've made all the big decisions, and that jumps up to 72% feeling like they're going to be confident in the rest of their retirement. So just going through the process, your anxiety actually plummets once you've made the decision and taken that step. The second insight is that there are two most important drivers of retirement confidence beyond just your super account balance. The first is just having a goal, a target number that you're trying to hit, and a plan to get there. And the second is knowing enough to manage your money. So again, taking action so that you have a goal, you've worked out how to get to that goal, and you feel like you've learnt enough to manage your money comfortably or confidently is going to reduce that uncertainty by giving you clarity. So that was what we encourage people to do. Make a goal, work out how you're going to get there, improve your knowledge so that you're confident in managing your everyday money, and you'll have a much more enjoyable retirement because you're going to reduce those anxiety levels.
So again, it comes back to planning.
Yes.
That's an insight that I hadn't thought about, Mia, and I'm sure other people wouldn't have thought about that sort of thing as well. Now, Mia mentioned before identity shift. How can people plan better at that stage of their life?
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing that we see with our members. And it comes down to everyone's relationship with work. So everybody has a different relationship with work, and they fall into roughly 4 different styles. I'm curious where you think you are with these styles, and I'd like the audience to think about, as I go through them, which one resonates with me and what does that mean for how I might navigate retirement. So the first style is where work is just pays the bills. It's a paycheck. It's important to have rewarding work, but your identity is tied up with your family or your faith or your community or your hobbies. It's outside of work. So for those people, retirement is a relief. They love the freedom, but it doesn't bring up that sort of existential crisis of, who am I now? It's very much more about the practical stuff. So that's the style 1. Style 2 is where work is really a vocation or a calling. So a lot of people in helping professions feel this way about work. It's where they feel like they make a contribution, they feel needed. It's tied to a sense of responsibility and productivity. And so for these people, that transition can be a little disorientating because they feel unneeded. They feel like their talents might be wasted, and they're worried about sort of being productive. So for those people in retirement, You need a way to channel those kinds of thoughts and energies into mentoring or volunteering or something where you can contribute in a similar kind of way. The third style is for people who see work as providing structure and routine, which you mentioned before, and that social connection. So it gives shape to their day, it gives shape to their week and their year. It's where they get a sense of accomplishment. It gives them a sense of respect as well. And again, there's that sense of purpose and meaning in the routine it gives their lives. So for those people, there can be a sense of loss when work goes away. There can be a bit unsettling about what does my day look like now and why am I getting up in the morning? You need to find new reasons. The fourth, and this style is probably the one that experiences sort of the greatest shift in identity, is when work is really a big part of your identity. It's core to your identity. So work is where you get a sense of belonging. It's where you see your purpose, your status. It's where you set goals. You get a sense of mastery out of work. A lot of people who have their own business sort of have this kind of relationship with work as well. So for those people, they need to think about how they're going to have these opportunities to contribute or build their self-worth in another way when paid work isn't at the centre of it.
I think I'm probably the first one with a bit of the second one somewhere in there, I think.
I think it also changes over your career. Like you might have started out feeling like, oh yeah, this is my calling. And as you get, decades down the path, your relationship might change.
A lot of people plan financially, less so emotionally. What is one thing that surprises people when they retire?
Yes. So for people who are deeply connected with their work, a whole raft of feelings can come up that they're not expecting but are very common. They can feel grief, they can feel loss, they can feel lonely, they can feel depressed and anxious, they might feel guilty, they might feel bored. I've interviewed people where they're like, retirement's a bit more boring than I thought. So some people feel that. You might feel none of those things. You might feel just utter elation and freedom and you're living your best life and you're totally in love with your lifestyle. And you might feel some of these emotions at different stages of retirement. So some people might feel flat and unsure about how they're going to inject some purpose into their life. We also see with people who have more senior roles or run their own business, who are used to being consulted on things and deferred to and being at the centre of things, sometimes these people feel a little invisible. They're sort of at the edges of things. So if their work gives them a huge sense of self-worth, they also need to find other avenues for creating that feeling. So yeah, all of these feelings are common. You might feel different ones at different stages, but there are things you can do at each of those phases to work through those feelings or prepare beforehand so they don't hit you so hard.
Now, Mia, we've spoken a couple of times about identity shift. How can people manage that identity shift in a healthy way?
So a good way to think about it is thinking about how you showed up at work in terms of your skills and your attitudes and behaviours. And can you use those skills and attitudes and behaviours in how you show up in new parts of your life? So if you were used to managing people or leading people or organising projects, you might turn to working in a nonprofit or in the community. You might volunteer, you might mentor people, you might jump on a board, and you get to use these same skills just in a different way. So that can be helpful if that's the way you're wired. We also see people who think, okay, well, I was primarily useful through paid work. Now I'm going to lean into this idea that I'm primarily useful through my relationships. So they might be caring for a partner or a relative, a parent. They might provide more support to grandchildren or their adult children with some healthy boundaries in there. But they're going to sort of lean into their family and take on more of those matriarch, patriarch roles where they're interested in a sense of legacy for their family. And that can be very rewarding and very profound for people. So depending on how you're wired, you can start to set some of these things up and rebalance your life in this way before you actually leave paid work. So it's not such a binary switch on, switch off. You kind of taper into it.
Some interesting concepts there that, again, most people may not have thought about. Does your research show there's a difference between those that plan their retirement rather than those that just go straight into it?
Yes, we certainly see patterns in different groups here. The research is pretty clear. So we find that there's people who plan their retirement, whether it's at a certain age or a certain number of years, feel more in control of their retirement. They've been proactive. And so that financial transition and the emotional transition is usually a little smoother. For people who don't retire on their own terms, and that can be because there's health issues, or they have to care for a partner, or they've been made redundant and can't find suitable work, those people, when we talk to them, they sort of talk about retirement happening to them instead of choosing it. So that sort of loss of agency, that loss of choice can make them feel quite anxious, and they can have a harder time shifting into retirement. So it's interesting that retirement confidence isn't just about having that sum in the balance. It's also about that readiness and that choice and how much control you have about retirement. So we've talked about the transition to retirement product. We see lots of people who taper down, go part-time, start playing around with a new lifestyle and feeling not just the new pace of their day and their week, but also how they manage their money in a different way. And they often have a sort of a smoother retirement because they're emotionally ready as well as financially ready.
Now, Mia, you've given us some great insights, but what is one thing that people could do to help prepare for this transition?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to say something that I think some people will find unexpected. They're probably thinking I'm going to say, get some financial advice, which obviously we encourage. It is a great step to take. But what I suggest people do is a little experiment, which is to take some time away from work, might be a week, might be a few days, and don't actually go on holiday and plan holiday activities and a holiday budget. Just live at home as if you were retired and plan your days as you would if you were thinking, this is what I want my retirement to look like. What does it feel like when you're at home and you've planned certain activities? Maybe you thought you were going to lean into hobbies. What does it actually feel like to live this way? And you'll be surprised what you learn, because you'll notice parts of the day where you were having a great time. You might notice parts of the day where there was some friction or some boredom. And it just gives you a little sense, a reality check and a bit of a sense check about what retired life might actually look like and feel like. Especially if you're retiring at a different time to your partner. If you have a partner, what does it feel like when one of you is at home and the other is still working? How does the pace of the week feel? How does the rhythm of the week feel? It'll give you some clues about what you might need to dial up or dial down or think about differently when you actually retire. So it's a little lived experiment. Just for a few days or a week to see how that life actually feels. And it'll give you some clues as to what you might need to plan for the future.
So if you have a partner, it's what you do together, what you do apart.
That's right.
Thanks, Mia, for your time. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. What is one thing that you could leave with people to make the most out of their retirement?
Yeah, I'd suggest that people reflect on whether they have a retirement role model or a retirement buddy. So one thing we noticed in the research is that a lot of people, they might have had people in their lives that have retired, but they haven't sort of looked closely at how they did that. And a retirement role model can be a really powerful North Star to start thinking about. They've retired. I love the way they're living their life. How did they do that? And having a chat with them, or having a buddy that you can talk through your planning together. So someone that you can bounce ideas off, talk about what they've researched, the products they've discovered, the questions they have, so that you don't have to go through this alone. So who is going to be your sort of wingman as you go through retirement or start planning for retirement? And that does a couple of things. One, it gives you a sense of agency, because you're like, if they can do it, then I can do it. And also you have someone to share ideas with and learn from, and step into retirement together if you're going through this at the same stage. It could be a colleague, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be someone you've met at the dog park. It doesn't matter, as long as you can have those sort of transparent conversations about what you're doing with your money and how you're going to set up your retirement so that you actually really enjoy it.
Thanks, Mia, and really appreciate your time and the insights you've given to us today. We hope this has got you thinking about how you can prepare not just for the financial transition to retirement, but the emotional one too.